Hello, everybody. We are back for this long QCB. We're going to have about 4 hours of panels and discussions. And we are very happy to start with Elie Girard. We are welcoming Elie, who is the CEO of ATOS. He succeeded to Thierry Breton, who was a speaker last year at the QCB. And we are very happy because we know that you are excited to follow up on this vision that was started, 5 or 4 years ago. And so we would like to hear from you about this vision and what can you say of where you are, what's your strategy, what are your plans? You've got about 12 minutes to do that, and then later we're going to ask you a couple of questions, including from the audience.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and I would like to extend my thanks to BPI France and Nicolas and the entire team for organizing this event, the second edition of this event. I think it's absolutely great to be able to organize such events, even virtually, and it seems to go very, very smoothly. And also, I think it's very bold and audacious to organize such an event around quantum and to gather the entire quantum community in this event. And I would say beyond a bold or audacious event, it's a very useful event. But I thought, what could I talk about in this short keynote to all of you, because you've heard already a lot from many colleagues who are extremely competent and much more competent than myself, and you will learn a lot from others later this afternoon. I thought maybe I could speak of what we think at ATOS is the real quantum supremacy. And I'm talking about that because we've been hearing over the last month and quarters and years a lot about the quantum supremacy. I don't think a lot of people really understood what it meant. I did not really understand what it meant. And at least I would like to give what we think at ATOS is a definition of the real quantum supremacy. Maybe to explain where I come from, I would say the following. I would talk about the positioning of ATOS and what ATOS does. ATOS is a digital services company working worldwide, in Europe, in the US as well, in Asia, a bit everywhere in the world. And our role, our mission is to bring technologies to industrial customers, to end users. We are this bridge between the technologies, including the R&D lab, even the most academic labs, to the end users, to the most industrial partners, the most industrial customers. And therefore, I would like to take that point of view of what I call the real quantum supremacy, which is the supremacy of quantum from the eyes of the industrial players. This real quantum supremacy is when a problem from the real life will be solved by quantum while we cannot solve it today with classical computing. Then only we will be able to talk about real quantum supremacy. We need to be able to solve problems that we cannot solve today. And then our lives will start changing. And that will be fantastic. We are on our way there. But if we keep that in mind as a definition, I'm not pretending to have the definition, but at least I think it's a definition which is shared by many of our customers and partners, which are very large industrial partners in the world, across the planet. If we keep that goal in mind, let's talk about the journey to get there and the way at ATOS we see how we can get to this real quantum supremacy. And I'm happy to debate about all this afterwards with my friends here. We think that there are 5 steps in that journey to get to the real quantum supremacy. The first one is simulation. We are already there. Simulation of what a quantum behavior will be. We don't have a quantum computer yet. We don't know exactly when a quantum computer as such will exist. We don't know exactly. But what we know how to do today is to simulate with classical servers, classical HPC, high-performance computers, the behavior, what we think the behavior of qubits is going to be, including the noise, in particular, around the qubits. At ATOS, we built the ATOS quantum learning machine, the ATOS QLM, which was very successful in Europe, but also especially in the United States. Our quantum learning machine is working today at the Oak Ridge, for example, in Stanford University, in many other US labs, and of course, in many places, in many apps in Europe. So that is simulation, quantum learning machine simulator. I insist on one feature of those simulators. Those simulators are technology agnostic. When I say technology agnostic, I'm talking about the technology of the qubits. Whatever the technology of the qubits, and we all know that there are many, and many colleagues talked about that this morning. You've got several technologies to build qubits. Whatever the technology, those simulators work and can be tested by any of you to really build this behavior, this quantum behavior. This is the first step on the journey. The second step of the journey is the accelerator. Here, accelerator, we get out of the simulation based on classical servers, on classical computing. We merge classical computing, HPC, with qubits, and we get accelerator. We are building a NISQ accelerator at ATOS that we target for 2023. So we're getting there. Quantum is, for those who are doubting, I know no one is doubting, because if you're watching, you're not doubting, but we can spread the word that, we've been saying that it is for 10 years, for 15 years, for 20 years. We have very serious and tangible steps right now or in a very few years from now. 2023, we will have the first NISQ accelerator joining, again, HPC and qubits. We're working, for example, with Pascal, and you saw some videos on our friends from Pascal and the fantastic work they're doing. We're partnering with them. We announced that today to be able to work on what could be an accelerator based on the neutral atoms they're working on. The third step is of a different nature, but is as important. We need a common, undisputed metric. We are hearing too much in the media, in the press of, I built that many qubits and I got to whatever supremacy again, and we never know what those qubits are doing really. We can have lots of qubits, but if we cannot use them because there are too much noise, or we cannot tame them, we cannot control them, it's totally useless. So we need to build a universal, undisputed metric that will be able to judge the systems that are being built by whoever partners. And to have such a metric, it cannot be a physical metric or physical measurement. It has to be a metric measuring the ability to solve a simple problem. The very famous traveling salesman problem, the max cut problem, whatever, whichever. But we need to build a metric, again, a universal, undisputed metric, which will be able to solve the ability to solve a problem, a well-known, transversal, again, undisputed problem. So that's 3, metric. The fourth element is, of course, applications. Applications. Again, as I defined, or I gave that definition of real quantum supremacy, this ability to solve real problem from the real life that we cannot solve today, then we will get to this quantum supremacy. We need, of course, to start running applications. And this is a call from me, from ATOS, to any industrial partner, and we are already working with many of them. If you've got problems, especially in the combinatorial area, optimization problems, you cannot solve with your computing power you have today, with the algorithms you have today, come to us. And we'll work together with partners. I talked about Pascal, but many others. We will try to set up this problem in the right terms, and we'll try to find a way to solve it. Maybe not now, but is to build the foundation so that that problem will be solved as soon as we have an accelerator, for example, in 2 years or 3 years from now. So we need applications. We need to get quantum out of labs. So nothing against labs, of course, but we need to build that bridge I was talking about to get to that real-life quantum supremacy. And then there is a fifth step, which is to be led all along this journey, which is of a different nature, which is quantum safe cryptography. And this is major because we cannot, at least in our position at ATOS, in building that journey with, again, many partners, many customers as well, we cannot follow that journey, build that journey, without working with the same level of efforts on a quantum safe cryptography. It's about ethics of not building a technology without making sure that there are some barriers and limitations and protections. But it's also about business, because at some point when we will get through this quantum supremacy, we will need this protection. So the quantum safe cryptography, and I think that was also mentioned by many speakers this morning, is a key component. It's not on the side, or it's not on top, or to be dealt with afterwards. It has to be dealt with now, all along this journey. So it's what we call a SAMAC journey. It's simulation, it's acceleration, it's common metric, it's applications, and it is cryptography. That is the journey I just wanted to lay out before a discussion we're going to have now. But this is, for us, the journey, the 5 components that will lead to a real quantum supremacy, to that point that altogether we will have at least a little started to change our lives.
Thank you very much for this inspiring talk. So let me start by asking the question of what you think the position of Europe in this large ecosystem, in this exciting, everlasting. I know ATOS has been pioneering the position of the European, so I would like you to mention a few words on that for us, please.
Thank you. I think, if you think of the assets of Europe, and Europe is France, Germany, but the rest, I on purpose, and thank you for the question, talk of Europe, not just the Franco-German axis, which sometimes is a bit reducing and exclusive to many other countries where there are lots of startups and lots of efforts being done, including, I would include our UK colleagues, if you don't mind. I think in this group, the assets we have would lead us naturally to work on the, I would say, the upper layers. Just to be a bit schematic, if you don't mind, but on that middleware that we need to, what I call, to tame the qubits, to be able to get control of the qubits. I think we need, it was normal during the first period of the infancy of quantum that we would build qubits without being able to use them.
Correct.
Because we needed this proliferation. But now, the only qubit which is worth it is a qubit we can use. Correct. So we need that middleware that is able to simulate the noise, especially, to get control of the qubits. And above the middleware, there are the applications. And then I go back to this. I think we have in Europe the largest market in the world of enterprise data. And in a way, the largest market in the world of enterprise problems, enterprise optimization issues to be solved. So that's why we need to build that bridge as quickly as possible and as wide as possible with any industrial interested to bring his or her optimization problem so that we can lay it out in a quantum environment and include it in that journey to get it solved. I think this is where Europe will be strong, middleware and applications.
Maybe just to follow up on that, because this issue of ethics of quantum technology was already highlighted in the conversation we had with Cedric O this morning. You already briefly mentioned, but maybe you can tell us a bit more about what is the ATOS ambitious in this domain to help with the research that need to be done and questions that need to be addressed in the ethics of quantum technology.
Yeah, I think it's indeed a great question that we should ask anyway, any time we develop anything. But here, as we are talking about a very futurist or advanced technology more than ever, and that will definitely push the walls very far. More than ever, we need to do what we call ethics by design, which means it has to be in the entry of the system and not being an afterthought or a kind of patch that you think about after having started to develop. So at ATOS, and within this journey that I described that we're taking on, we put that at the upfront, at the very beginning. And that means, why are we doing this? Okay, so if it is, and I think the minister this morning was talking about, if we build quantum to build some additional nuclear weapons, is it worth it? So in all my speech around applications, that's part of it. I'll give you one example, if you don't mind, of those applications, because I'm talking about applications, but I'd better give an example and to be tangible. We're working with Total on and I think a great application, which will be exactly in your question. Why are we doing all this? You know that we need to capture the CO2 from the atmosphere. We will not be today. The carbon compensation that gives good consciousness to everybody is done through planting trees or wind farms, etc. That's great, but it will not scale up. We're not going to plant trees in the oceans. So we need to find a sustainable, structural way to compensate. And Total and others, by the way, but Total in particular, is working on how can we capture the CO2 from the atmosphere and store it. To do this, you need molecules with more than 50 atoms. More than 50 atoms, and therefore much more electrons, etc. So to simulate this, you cannot simulate that even with the biggest HPC today, with classical computing. You need quantum. So we're working with them on this. I mean, imagine if we manage, if Total manages with our support to do this, the good that we will have made together. I'm not a stupid, naive dreamer, but this is very aspirational, and this is just exactly the opposite of, building weapons or whatever. And the second component, if I may, I talked about it, you mentioned it as well, is the cybersecurity aspect of the quantum-safe cryptography. I think it's a second component of this ethics by design that we all need to carry on our shoulders all along this journey.
Olivier?
Yeah, I view ATOS as both a hardware player and software player. You mentioned middleware, those investments, and we know that there are very serious investments in the programming language and stuff like that, targeting both simulation and emulation and actual quantum computing. How do you view the challenges of becoming a winner in a platform battle in such a new field? And how would you define the success of going into that battle against large American companies or other startups or whoever can play in that game?
Again, I'm coming back to the outcomes. The position of Europe has to be on, and it has been, by the way, in the history, so I'm not inventing anything. I'm just building what Europe knows how to do. We don't want to do quantitative hardware, with a physical performance which would not mean anything. We want to solve problems. We want to solve industrial issues, optimization problems. I mentioned, molecules from Total, but I could mention what we do with the Bayer. It's always about combinatorial issues that industrial, like Bayer, like energy players also have. Transportation. Those problems sometimes look very simple, but when you change the scale and the number of dimensions, you go quantum very quickly. Going quantum means you can't solve now. So we need to be able to solve. That will be the metric. I was talking about having a common universal metric. I was talking exactly about your question. I will consider that we have won the battle when that metric, which is about solving a problem, will be better than others.
Isn't that not solving many customer problems? I mean, you need to have a critical mass of customers in that space.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why I'm giving a call.
In a scalable way. In a scalable way. Yeah.
Sending a call today. I'm looking at everybody and saying, you're a large, medium, small group, you are industrial player, you've got a problem, a combinatorial, optimization problem you don't know how to solve now. I mean, you've got your guys, you know, not just ATOS, but all the ecosystem around us and Pascal and others. So you're absolutely right. We're not going, you know, if we solve one problem in the middle of nowhere, it will not be enough. So we need many problems to solve, and we need to be able to solve them, including some with dimensions which are in the hundreds, not in the 50s, in the hundreds.
Okay.
That's a good call to stop with in order to go to the panel that is come after, and we have more chance to hear more about ATOS. Wonderful. So thank you very much for setting up the stage.
Thank you again to the organization. Thank you.